The year is 1966. After the saccharin smuggling incident, Samsung's reputation lay in ruins. The founder of Samsung, Lee Byung-chul, after building his empire from the ground up, is forced to resign from Samsung, placing his firstborn son in charge. However, this didn't exactly mean Lee Byung-chul was going to spend his retirement just laying about. Upon his resignation, Lee Byung-chul spent the next couple months traveling around Japan, hoping to find inspiration for his next business venture, one that would restore Samsung's reputation. This time around, he would find inspiration in the form of a then newly booming industry, electronics. At the time, the Korean electronics industry merely consisted of a handful of companies assembling electronics under contract from foreign companies, with LG being one of the few companies to produce domestically licensed and manufactured electronic products. Seeing the sheer scale of the factories and exports in Japan, Lee Byung-chul decided to build even larger factories in his home country of South Korea. And in 1969, he founded the Samsung Electronics Company in the city of Suwon. Hey, this looks very promising, but how about we go and check on that son of yours and the rest of Samsung Group? As it turns out, his first son, Lee Mang-hee, wasn't exactly capable of running the Samsung Group as well as his father. During his absence, his son had failed to steer the company in the proper direction, and it is said that Lee Mang-hee's time as CEO at Samsung was largely filled with chaos. Seeing his first son dropping the ball with the company, Lee Byung-chul came to the conclusion that his son was not fit to be the CEO of Samsung. And with the establishment of the newly created Samsung Electronics Company, Lee Byung-chul once again took the place as the CEO of Samsung Group. However, his second son, Lee Chang-hee, was seemingly unhappy with his father's decision to return to the head of the company. Lee Chang-hee, at this point, had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for his involvement in the saccharin smuggling incident, for which he only served 6 months. Seeing his older brother failing to hold up his duties as the first heir, he knew he would eventually be next in line to the Samsung throne. However, when his dad took back the CEO spot, Lee Chang-hee devised a dastardly plan. Without his dad in the picture, he figured he would be the next person running Samsung. His plan? Get rid of his father and place himself as the new CEO of Samsung. Lee Chang-hee decided he would write a letter to the government stating that the saccharin smuggling incident was actually his dad's idea all along. This letter would eventually be climbed up to the highest level of South Korean government, the president of South Korea, Park Chung-hee himself. However, legend has it that upon reading this letter, Park Chung-hee said, "A son framing a father and reporting him is a violation of the moral values of family relationships. Dismiss this case." And with that, Lee Chang-hee's plan had failed. He would later be exiled from Samsung and move to the United States. He would later return and beg his father for forgiveness. In 1991, he would pass away after being diagnosed with blood cancer. Back at Samsung Electronics, Lee Byung-chul's initial plan was to work with Japanese companies to first license their products for assembly using Korean labor, and in turn, Samsung Electronics would learn the ropes of the electronics industry. The early days of Samsung Electronics products included a variety of mainly home appliances, like TVs, radios, and refrigerators. At first, their products suffered from a range of poor quality issues. However, over the next couple years, Samsung gradually began to improve upon their craft. And within 5 years of founding Samsung Electronics, Samsung produced their first domestic product, a black and white color TV. From here, they would continue to grow, eventually becoming the #1 electronics company in the country by the 70s, surpassing LG. The 1970s saw South Korea go through an explosive period of economic growth, the miracle on the Han River. Under South Korea's president and later dictator Park Chung-hee, the Korean government provided access to government-subsidized materials, loans, and tax breaks. And through these incentives, companies in South Korea saw unprecedented growth, exporting and bringing in billions of dollars to the nation. Lee Byung-chul and Samsung, too, would leverage the incentive provided by Park Chung-hee's administration to establish a foothold on various different industries during this time, growing Samsung to unimaginable new heights. Chaebol synthetic fiber in 1972, glass manufacturing in the Sheila Hotel in 1973, Samsung Chemicals and Samsung Heavy Industries in 1974. Heavy industries responsible for building excavators, trucks, and even ships. Their own farm in Yongin in 1976, which would eventually turn into the largest amusement park in Korea, Everland. Samsung Precision Industries in 1977, which would eventually go on to manufacture jet engines, helicopters, and even the K9 self-propelled howitzer. It would also be around this time an even newer electronic product began to emerge: semiconductors. In 1974, Samsung had their first opportunity to take a stab at the semiconductor industry when a failing semiconductor company in Korea, cleverly named Korea Semiconductor Company, went up for sale after declaring bankruptcy. Seeing its potential, Lee Byung-chul's third son, Lee Gun-hee, advocated for its purchase. However, his father deemed the technology to be too speculative and declined the offer. But this didn't deter the third heir in line. Lee Gun-hee, using his life savings, purchased a majority of the share of the Korea's semiconductor company. Eventually, seeing the fierce competition over semiconductors in Japan and the United States, Lee Byung-chul finally realized that there was indeed a market for these speculative products after all, and began allocating significant effort to the research and development of their semiconductor divisions. Students were scouted and a major push was made to beat out the competitors globally. Eventually, Samsung Semiconductor Division would formally be established as Samsung Semiconductor in 1979. Soon thereafter, Samsung began to catch up to Japan and the United States, even becoming the first to develop the 64MB, 256MB, and the 1GB DRAM chips, eventually becoming the primary supplier for DRAM chips in future Apple products. In conjunction with the rapid development of their semiconductor division in the 1980s, this period is where we would also begin to witness development on mobile phones. Despite pushing well into his 70s in age, Lee Byung-chul continued to foster explosive growth for his company, securing Samsung as the company of South Korea. However, such growth would come at a cost. Lee Byung-chul is often noted for his stance against labor unions. At times, harsh working conditions and long hours meant workers had little options to improve their circumstances, and any attempts to unionize would be met with a termination from the company. It wouldn't be until June of 2024 where we saw the first ever organized union attempt from workers. On his deathbed, Lee Byung-chul would state that the chairman position would go to his third son, Lee Gun-hee. And with that, on the 19th of November, 1987, Lee Byung-chul passed away after years of battling lung cancer. Under Lee Gun-hee, Samsung would become the smartphone giant that we know today, the first ever mobile phone being created a year after Lee Byung-chul's death. After his death, Samsung Group was divided into 5 different groups: CJ Group, Shinsegae Group, Hansol Group, Samsung Group, and the Chungang Holdings, all conglomerates of their own, many of which were inherited by his children and are being run by his descendants till the present day. The sugar manufacturer mentioned in the previous video, Cheiljedang, separated from the Samsung Group in 1993 and was created into the CJ Group. Some of my viewers familiar with Korean media may be familiar with this logo and intro, CJ Entertainment, a subsidiary of CJ Group, a production company that has brought us movies like Parasite and Snowpiercer. In addition, CJ Group also owns all of these companies, some of which you may see at your local Costco and grocery store. They even have a bakery chain. The department store he acquired in the 1940s, Shinsegae, branched off as the Shinsegae Group. Shinsegae Group is the largest retail conglomerate in South Korea, owning some of the highest-end malls in the country, as well as the country's largest grocery store chain. The newspaper he founded, 중앙일보, was separated from Samsung as Chungang Holdings. In addition to 중앙일보 being the top 3 largest newspaper publisher in Korea, the group classifies itself as the largest comprehensive media entertainment group in Korea. owning broadcasting networks, movie theater chains, as well as their own hotel line. The paper company, Hansol Paper, split off in 1991 as Hansol Group and is the largest paper manufacturer in Korea. Some of their affiliates also include businesses consulting, counseling, and all of these affiliates as well. Samsung's construction division, which started all the way back in the 1960s, is even responsible for the construction of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. Samsung Heavy Industries is among the top 3 largest shipbuilders in the nation. Second only to the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, Samsung Semiconductors accounted for 13% of the global semiconductor market share in Q1 of 2024. Since 2011, Samsung has been the largest manufacturer of smartphones, only being dethroned by Apple in 2023. Even still, many of the parts like batteries, screens, and chips used in Apple products are manufactured by Samsung. In 2023, Samsung Electronics also held a 30% market share in the global TV market. In the end, all of these companies, products, services, jobs, and all of its outcomes, good or bad, can be traced back to one man, Lee Byung-chul. So the next time you're watching something through your Samsung TV smartphone and grabbing a bibigo dumpling out of your Samsung fridge, think back to Lee Byung-chul and how all of this started with a rice milling business in the small city of Daegu.